So, I wanted to introduce uh, a banjo building clip as we're doing our Fun Friday thing. And I am in the process of reclaiming some old flooring or repurposing some flooring and building a banjo out of it. And I wanted to start with, just explaining this isn't the first time I've repurposed wood. That I have an instrument here I wanted to show you that I made out of the top out of fence boards. And actually, this entire instrument is a repurpose. Everything about it. So it, it all started with I had this back and these sides, and that's it. It was broken. It was an old classical guitar, was broken, and I had to cut it off and fix all this stuff because it was just, well, it was ready for the dumpster. And I had to make this piece, and this was actually a tenor banjo, which would have been likely tuned like a viola back in the day that I restored. It's not a Gibson, it's a Gibson knockoff neck. If it had been a Gibson neck, I'd have sold it and made some money. But I restored it, figured out how to attach it, and then I had to build the top for this instrument. This is what's called a plectrum guitar, four-string guitar, tenor guitar, however you want to put it. There are a lot of different ways of tuning it. I've experimented with different things. Right now I'm using an open G tuning on it, just because that's what I want to do right now. But this wood, these are white cedar fence boards, and were an ugly, hot mess. They looked like they weren't even good enough for the fence anymore. They were weathered and cracked and old and nasty and ugly. And my resident wood hoarder, Tom Stimmerman, he held on to them, and I talked him into planing them down and made this top. And this here, that is a knot hole. And so this is repurposed wood from an old fence, of all things. And so that's that. Now, some people ask why I would build a banjo. First of all, some people actually like those banjo jokes. So there's a few strange people out there. Stephen actually messaged me, what's the difference between jumping on a trampoline and a banjo? And he said, you get tired of jumping on a trampoline. Now, oddly, he's the one that asked for banjo making plans, so he is a twisted sort. Then, of course, Bert said that he laughed so hard he snorted. None of us want to hear or see that happen. But he doesn't have a banjo that I know of or is interested in one per se, but he brings a whole new experience to being strange and twisted. He is weird, strange, and twisted in his own world on his own level that beats out everybody else. So he should be a banjo player, but I don't know that he is. In any case, I get asked the question periodically, why do you make so many banjos? Especially, you can make a guitar, you can make basses, you can make so many different instruments. Why banjos? And I'm going to confess to you what it really is. It's part of a serious government conspiracy started by Grandpa Jones on Hee Haw to undermine the sanity of humanity by releasing more banjo music into the atmosphere. Now, when I say it's part of a government conspiracy, not ours, but it's part of the Chinese government, and many of us are being well paid to build banjos by the Chinese government to release banjo music into the atmosphere to challenge the sanity of humanity. The other thing it does is the piercing sound of the banjo breaks up the ice of Antarctica, which everybody knows is a wall of ice around the perimeter of a flat Earth. And if we can shatter the ice on the flat Earth, the water will run off the edges, leaving us in a barren wasteland. Now, the reason the Chinese government wants us to do this is because they have the Great Wall of China, which holds their water in, and they will be able to dominate and capitalize on their water supply and our absence therein. So that's why I build so many banjos. It's really a sadistic thing. And if you believe that, this is not the right channel for you. In any case, I'm going to stop there and play the clip of where I'm at in the banjo build. I will say my original intent was not to play any of these clips till I had finished the project and knew it was working. But I got brave and decided that I would go ahead and show you clip by clip. And if for some reason at the end of this thing, this banjo doesn't work the way it should, I'll reinvent it and I'll figure out a way, and we'll go through that process. But I'm relatively confident it will work. I certainly hope and pray it does. But there's nothing wrong with boo-boos, and we'll figure it out if I have a boo-boo. So the Lord bless you. I hope you enjoy this process of building this hybrid banjo out of fluorine that I'm working on. Well, to continue this build that I'm doing, I've made well over 20 different instruments. I've made guitars and a mandolin and dobro and lap steel, electric guitars as well as acoustic, baritone, stand-up bass, all kinds of things, and quite a few banjos. And I have never ever tried to document the process before. Maybe it's because I never thought it'd work out. I don't know, but I just haven't. And so I thought that's what I've been doing. Now, I've been a little busy, and I chose to work with tiger wood, which is ultimately it will be a beautiful wood, but I don't recommend working with it as a general rule. And I knew that when I started, that I've worked with it before. I made a 6-string banjo, and part of it is tiger wood, and it's beautiful. But tiger wood is real brittle, and it cracks easily. It doesn't like routers. It saws well, and it sands okay, and everything. It's a little harder to shape that way. It's got a lot of oils in it, it seems like, so it's a little harder to glue. It's called tiger wood because these beautiful stripes that it gets, and they are beautiful, and every one of those beautiful stripes is a weak point waiting to cause problems. And so I knew that. And you'll see this if it worked. If it doesn't work, you won't see this. So what I've done, I'm working on, it's a hybrid between a regular banjo and a mountain banjo. And you've seen my mountain banjo before. I decided to make a bigger skin ring. And as I mentioned, I started with this Bakelite, I think it was a Harmony product back in the day. It's a banjo rim. And I cut the flange off that held the tension hooks so I can fit it through here to make tension. And so it will cause tension on a natural goat skin, much like a mountain banjo does. So what I've done in the process is I've glued my tiger wood together, cut out a circle shape for the front, and glued the neck in here. And you'll see this steel rod, that's not a tension rod. I've put tension rods in other instruments. Most recently it was a 6-string banjo for someone else. And there's a splinter. So, but I went ahead and I used a 1/4-inch chisel, and I made this groove. And this is a stainless rod, and I just put it in for support and strength. That's all it is. And it'll get glued in under the fretboard. And then you'll see I glued my extra piece of wood on the back because I'll cut a 15-degree angle into this to keep the strings to have good tension. So that's going to be the front. And then I just finished making a fretboard for it. And so this is also tiger wood. And so it's a 17 fret fretboard that I made. Just slotted it by hand with my little hand saw for making fret slots. And I mark it with a square and just saw straight on the line. And that will go over the truss rod. So you see the truss rod. This will glue over it. That's how instruments are made, and it glues over the truss rod. And it'll give me a little bit of, not much, but a little bit of a scoop there. And once I get that all in place, I will have already cut out my 15-degree angle. Then I'll start shaping the neck. And now the other thing I've done is I got busy with some plywood, and it's 3 different pieces of plywood, and I laminated them together. They're in a circle. And the purpose of that, and none of this is sanded yet, it will be, is that it will glue on to the front of the banjo. And that just gives me the right depth for this ring. So you can see that it's the perfect depth for the ring to push against the natural goat skin. And so that's what I'll be busy on very soon, is sanding this. I'll get this all sanded smooth. Then I'll laminate it onto the banjo, and then I'll sand this to meet it. Now what this is going to get, it's not just going to be ugly plywood. It's going to get some of this veneer on here. And the big question at this point that I am undecided on is, will this veneer, will I keep the veneer natural, or will I stain it some sort of red mahogany or cherry? And so natural kind of compares to the wood like that. And once it's sanded, this looks pretty light, but as it gets sanded and lacquered, it changes. So that will come up against this. So I'm working on that decision. This isn't actually the piece I'm going to use. This is a scrap because now my next step will be to stain part of it and make a comparison of which I like best. And everybody has their opinion about that. I tend to always go natural if I can, but occasionally I'll stain something. And part of it is I'm kind of opting for making the whole instrument darker, and that's why I'm thinking in terms of a stain, because I'm also actually going to attempt, I've never done it, but I saw a video where someone else did, and I'm going to stain the goat skin with a kind of a Danish oil walnut color to make it a little darker, because they bleach those skins anyhow. So then I want to stain it back and kind of give it all a darker tone, just for kicks and giggles. So that's where I'm at this far.